Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our September 2024 Open Council meeting. Quick housekeeping. This meeting is open to all co-op members in good standing. This is a working council meeting, so we are following a tight agenda and ask that comments and chats from any members who are here be reserved until our open forum time at the end of this meeting, where we'll set aside time for everyone to ask questions, make comments. And if anything doesn't get answered, you can always email us at council@kingstonfoodcoop.com. Same for anybody watching. You can always send us questions there, and we will follow up and answer those in our next newsletter or our next meeting and share out any information that way. And lastly, we'll end tonight with an executive session, which is closed to council members only. And that session is used to discuss any potentially sensitive topics that would need to be closed to council members only in order to reserve any privacy issues, so on and so forth. So I will get us started. I'll first just check with the council for any agenda amendments or questions. And if not, today we don't have any proposals to vote on, but we do have a point of discussion to answer a question in our notes, a discussion in order to create a proposal for next time. And the discussion is going to be around staffing needs. So brainstorming what areas we see gaps in our work and what type of work and tasks we would like to fill by hiring staff. We talked about this a bit in strategic planning in June, and it's an important topic for us going into our strategic planning next month. We haven't planned it yet, either towards the end of next month or beginning of November. And we've talked about working to transition the council into more of a governing structure and having staff really run the day-to-day operations for capacity purposes, and to start building out that worker class. I know it's been brought up a bit and we still need some more discussion around it as well. But that would be the goal ultimately, and this would be the first step, is figuring out what staff positions we need. And so starting with sort of identifying those gaps and what types of things we would like staff to take over. So I see there's some notes here, but I would think that we could just go around, honestly, and each person can sort of list off from their perspective and their bucket of work what type of thing they would like to have a staff member take over. So does anyone want to start and sort of jump in with that? Yeah, Elizabeth?
I can start. I was thinking that it would be nice to have someone hired to do outreach and education, sort of with like feet on the ground, potentially helping with tabling or any of the methodologies that we've arrived at for community engagement. So maybe just even one day a week to start, just to have an extra body there to assist in those efforts.
Could you dive even a little deeper? I heard you say tabling, which is very specific
So
task,
So any outreach, like today, like at the coffee with the co-op, for instance, they could be there. Any event that we're doing, like the Nourish and Flourish dinners, which we'll be doing consistently. Any event that we go to participate in, any tabling, like at the farmers market or the market that we did. It was a citywide market about a month ago that I did with you. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. But anything that requires a couple of people, it might be nice to have an extra person available to go with in case in case we're short. Also, I think that there's this kind of bridges the education and outreach and the marketing buckets, but I think there could be someone who's sort of a liaison between those two, who could help potentially with some marketing and in collaboration with education and outreach. Just a thought, but open to what
Yeah.
people think about that.
Do you have
So
any
that
ideas like what that could look like a task that would sort of translate into?
just someone who might keep track of like follow up from events, and also marketing events before they happen. Maybe keeping track of like when we send out the surveys, like what comes back to us, maybe keeping track of RSVPs, that type of thing.
I kind of, to build off of that, I see our marketing needs as pretty significant. So I think we would need a separate person to do marketing. But I do like this idea that the marketing person and the member engagement person have a close working relationship. Because I definitely agree. I think there's a lot that could overlap. So I could see there being like a standing meeting, weekly or bi-weekly, of those two people just kind of connecting on exactly what you talked about. Survey responses, RSVPs, those types of things.
Yeah, and I was also wondering, I heard you bring up education, and I was wondering if you see a need for someone to create like those outward facing educational materials, if you think like talking about social media or email and stuff like that, if that was a gap that you saw.
I think that would always be helpful. As far as like creating the materials, I mean, I think I could work in collaboration with someone to create the materials. But if I wasn't able to, then maybe they could. For one day, I think it would depend on what was needed at the time, for one day a week. But I think it would be nice if they had the capability to do that so that, if needed, they could create content for newsletters, I suppose. Although that's more marketing. But maybe assist in developing the orientation materials, maybe assist in developing any curriculum, outfacing curriculum. That would be nice to have some support.
And I think we'll figure out how much time we need from each person after we sort of see what we need first.
Okay.
We don't have to box it into necessarily a certain amount of hours or anything.
Mhm. That makes sense. Yeah, maybe depending on what's on the calendar. Like right now, it would be nice to have someone helping with flyering, for instance, but just depends on what we need, I guess.
Candace, did you have more you wanted to jump in on that sort of transition into marketing overlap?
Yeah, I think someone to actually, so I see here in our notes we already say having a clear marketing plan, coming up with those SMART goals, like definitely. But I think just having someone actually running our social media, running our website, keeping that up to date. Perhaps I feel like the newsletter is something that I'm never really sure if that's marketing or if that's more member engagement. It kind of is one of those areas of overlap, but I could see this person really taking that on as well. But I think if we had more consistent posting and engagement with our followers in social media and our newsletter, we would just be better off in these with our events, like the coffee with the co-op today. We would have had a better showing if we had more consistent marketing on our platforms.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I'm gonna add also graphic design, just in
Mhm.
general.
Mhm.
Hey, I can jump in there. I
Great.
was just traveling a little loud. Yeah, so I want to first really distinguish that the hat of board member, because it's fuzzy when you say council, but that's the word we use, council, but it's board. It's governance. And so that's the feedback source right now. It's coming from that level, not from the place of also doing the work or supporting the work that I'm proposing, which is like a different thing. The doing and the supporting of the work that I'm proposing is a completely different conversation that I'm happy to have. But what I'm saying is coming from that higher level first mandate that I feel, which is to govern and provide counsel and support the vision that's collective. So, okay. So the marketing, I agree. I put those notes on there. But I sense that Candace is seeing what I'm proposing is because it's really there's a gap there where it's partly capacity and partly tools and automation, right? Things like that, where from a governance standpoint, I've never seen a marketing plan. I've never had access to, let's say, the analytics. I did a quick scan of like our posts and our followers, and we have an enviable amount of followers on social media. But we post once a week at that, if that. And the content seems not very inspired or relative to some of the themes that should be put out. Like all you got to do is look at other food co-ops and see what they do, and you could sort of see the difference. So what I'm thinking is that it's like a capacity, but it's also like a tools thing. So we should talk about that. And the other piece is that I feel that we will be more educated around what a worker cooperative component could be. So all these positions that we need filled, because it might mean that we in the council continue to fill some of these positions, but the first thing Kendall started with was the separation between the board and staff. So I like to be very intentional about that. If folks want to continue to be on the board as a governance support and also continue to do this staff work, then I think we should discuss that, because I'm not sure it's sustainable the way it is. That we're playing this dual role and we're not clear on things like pay structure and time. It just doesn't feel like it feels like we've inherited something that needs to be looked at again. In the context of this conversation of bringing new people onto our team. So think that covers it. I wasn't looking at everything, and sorry if I went on. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I was also wondering if you have more, if if you see more space, different gaps as well, where we would benefit from having staff members. I know we really just covered marketing and outreach at this point. But I feel like there's also something within our programming and the work that's about to come up with
Finance.
buying.
Finance for sure. So there's that piece that for the last year I felt has been also difficult to ascertain. So having someone recruited with the skill set that we need up front, I think would be very helpful because the proposal of the mini market and this fundraising that we are going to engage in will really require someone to hit the ground running pretty quickly. So that area feels really daunting because it's difficult. But operations, I feel, will have a gap when Candace is gone because Candace, I think, is so organized and just like, that type of individual, and I feel hold things together that it'll feel real empty without you, Candace. I'm sorry. But you'll be back, right? No rush. Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, don't rush it. No, I'm serious. Don't rush it. Just take your time. Take your time. But that's like that baby will be out really in the summer, right? Like walking around and stuff. Oh, anyway, I'm getting at it. So anyway, yep, that's it. Finance.
Right. So my thought process was that finance would be something that stays with the board for the most part in terms of financial oversight. I mean, that's a board thing, unless unless you're talking about finance. I don't know. I was sort of wondering about the area of management and
Finance.
operations of the programming of the initiatives that we're running. So I was thinking about like the operations and management of the bulk buying initiative, and what's needed there. And I don't know
Oh yes,
how you're
it's in
separating
the
finance.
plan. It's in the plan. So if you look at the business plan, it lays out who we need to hire. And so
Business.
there's a whole operational plan for the market, for the mini market. That needs to get looked at, and that's a finance question, in my opinion, because we may have some funding, we may have to rethink how much we need, but that operational plan is there, and it lays it out, and it has a sort of beginnings of what that could look like as it grows. So one of those people that starts would become the general manager. So that's your operational person for that. Not see that wouldn't, right? Because that person wouldn't be responsible for members, right? That would be a completely different person. So we already sort of talked about a member coordinator, but then there's outreach, which is marketing, and so the marketing of, let's say, a membership is different than the marketing of what's on at the store this week, so it's a fine line, but those people need to be working close, whoever splits all of that just for the store. Then there's just engagement and like education, which coincides with all of that too in different ways. But like the village, anyway, sorry, I'll stop there.
Which document has the operational plan?
It's the business plan for the buying initiative. I shared it in one of the emails with a bunch of different documents. I don't have it easily accessible right now. but it was like something like here, catch up on these things. But there's a folder. If you go into the folder, everything's in there. It's the same folder where the checklist is, the RSVP, it's all in there. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. To the notes. Okay, and in regards to my finance question, I see, we have a gap on we're gonna have a gap on the council in regards to finance, and a need for a treasurer and someone with that expertise. But do we see that as what is the gap, or do we see that as a gap in staffing in terms of financial? I mean, when I think of finance, I think of financial oversight. I think of this large, we're on the council level, on the governing level, budget creation and management, expense management.
Yeah, but you need a bookkeeper for this because there's a lot of transactions. Like the amount of transactions the co-op would start doing through this will be much more. So it's not oversight. This is like day-to-day bookkeeping.
Besides our bookkeeper, though,
Oh, we have a bookkeeper. Sorry.
we do have a bookkeeper.
Sorry. There you go. Yeah, no, financial oversight in this instance to me just means bookkeeper, give me a report. Show me the A&R, show me the A&P,
Okay.
what P&L, where we at, So I've never, in this whole time, I've never met the bookkeeper. But why hasn't the bookkeeper like shown up and given us a report, right? So I think that's probably why they know that.
We can maybe set up that really. I mean, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I've met with her quite well since I've started, getting into since I've been in the finance committee, I've been meeting with her. She's a part of that group, and her and Sway were meeting weekly prior to that as well. And she's been a part of our financial sustainability work group. So she's been pretty
Awesome.
helpful. But we definitely can set more regular, develop how we want that relationship to look. Okay, and I just sort of wanted to get an idea. So in this so is it the operational efficiency plan that was shared in the chat? Okay, I see inventory manager, cashier, and stock assistants. Are those the roles, Joelle? Are we missing anything?
Yeah, that's starting to lay it out.
Okay.
For sure. Yep.
Okay, so then I just want to sort of add this. Right, so in terms of retail, which I'm just gonna retail, we're looking at 3 positions. I see that some of these would be filled by more than one person possibly, but 3 positions. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Were we going to maybe try to train up at least like 1 or 2 of those positions from out of the CCE, Joelle? Or were we thinking we would hire those positions?
Yes, and yeah, everyone. Yeah, as I'm thinking about it, CCE will give us recruits, recruit from within, and we'll use their people. Yeah. That's one of the ways that I was thinking about it for sure. Train up.
I was just curious, like if like hiring one person to start who can like kind of help train people might be. That I was just wondering if that would be a good start, or if
So we have access to consultants that can do that You know, that's it. That's like part of the other piece that I wanted us to get more familiar with. Like the national co-op grocers, you know, an FCI and others in the community that are willing to come in and provide that initial training and support.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But then the expectation is that we're finding people who are clear at that point that they can become worker owners. That they're not just being hired minimum wage to come do this little thing. You know, that there's a whole ladder to climb.
Sounds good.
So just also clarifying question is the inventory manager is that person you were saying would be on the track to be the general manager?
That might be, yeah, that might be. That's a pretty extensive role, but it might not, because general manager doesn't have to be one person. It could be three co-general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this idea is just one person. It doesn't have to exist, you know. But yeah, I mean, we're designing it. We're designing it still, but like, you know, there's something at least to hold on to, and these clarifying questions help sort of bring it forward a little bit.
Right. So could I think of that person as like retail manager? Store like
Oh yeah, totally.
okay.
The titles are like just to hold something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about just proposing from my perspective. We've talked about in the past, since we engaged an entire work group for about 6 months to research store leadership models when we first set out to hire a general manager. We had a whole committee, created a job description, put out a call for general managers, and found that our candidates didn't really align with our vision and values around who we wanted to hire to run the store, and sort of decided that the way we were going about it maybe didn't align enough with our core values, and so engaged a new committee, which was the store leadership committee, and they researched a lot of different avenues of what store leadership could look like. And the final proposal and recommendation was to have a shared leadership model to manage the store with 2 or 3 managers that have their own sort of department and work very closely together. And in that spirit, in this, I sort of see the retail manager and sort of the member engagement outreach manager in a way, where the retail has the cashier and the stock assistants and everything under them, and where the outreach manager has the marketing, social media marketing person sort of under them as their support in that smaller area. And
I like that vision. I like that. That's really nice. Yeah, the one thing that I would add to that was that based on the evidence, it might not be exactly, but it felt like during those 2 committees that came up ultimately with this way of shared leadership, that still the worker co-op component wasn't clear, you know, because in the visit to Honest Weight, I was really glad to hear that those people at the top, the managers, were also consumer owners. They're not a strict worker owner, right? But that in order for you to become a manager with voting power, right? And Candace and Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to have you have to be vested, right? You have to have like a certain amount of years and hours vested into it. So that's a lot of being in a worker cooperative, you know, the sweat equity piece. And that'll have to go into it, especially if we're going to train up people from the community. Because I also wanted to express that I wanted to actually be more explicit with how we might use the food co-op for Black empowerment and for liberation and for economic justice. So the worker cooperative piece, I think, is a really symbolic representation of that, but we haven't really talked. There's nothing in the co-op literature that says stuff like Black empowerment. or very, very intentional like that. It's more on the other end of the spectrum, if you will, you know. So I feel like that's what I heard when you said that, Kendall. Like when you reached out for GMs, it wasn't like values aligned. That's what I hear. You know what I mean? That's like, oh, it wasn't enough black people. You know what I mean? And like,
Or people from Kingston.
or local people,
Yeah.
exactly. You know what I mean? So there's different ways that we can go about it, but I just feel like this is one of those symbolic steps that'll help people feel that, you know, more intention.
Yeah. So moving into next steps, and I'll open it up for any last comments, but I feel good about this brainstorm in that Candace and I could probably draft some job descriptions out of this. And I think we have a meeting on Monday for operations and governance. Like maybe we could take some time drafting separately, come together then, maybe, you know, work it out a bit and possibly be able to share this for next Thursday's full team meeting or some drafts around this, and then we can, you know, come back together and sort of discuss another round, and see what we're thinking.
Looks like, sounds good.
And with that, are there any last comments or ideas you want to put forth for us to use in that process?
One thing I might add to this is that at some point, I think we should maybe set aside some time to discuss how we are going to, how we are going to go about creating that, the standards and the protocol to become a worker co-op. My understanding is that we have to collaborate to create those standards or that set of that framework. So I'd like to try to set aside some time to do that as a group, as a team.
Yeah, I think that's, since Joelle also brought that up yesterday, I think that's something we can work into our agenda for this Thursday, so we can have that conversation in the process of this too. Get that started.
Okay.
So sounds good. Just add, yeah, we need to. Yeah, and so I would ask Joelle if there's anything else to add to that for us, any other resources or things that we should have to like prepare for a discussion around this on Thursday. I think
I can bombard you with resources.
Okay.
But there's just a few that my job that we have that are easy guides that I think could be really great because we use them for business owners that we want to convert the business to employee owned. So they're meant to be you know, presented in a way where it's like, oh, you don't know anything about this, but this is like how it works. You know, so that'll be a good starting point. And then from there we usually have a really good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, do you have interest or would it make sense for you to facilitate the meeting on Thursday? Or to have some time to present something on Thursday?
Totally, you can put me in the agenda. And if I need to facilitate, I certainly can. Thursday, what time is it again? I apologize.
Yeah, that's Thursday at 10 a.m.
That's it. I don't think I'm going. I could do that. Yeah. I mean, you know, we could do a 20 to 30 minutes because it just might take that long or it might not, you know. But I want to make sure that for sure.
All right, that sounds good. We'll plan on that for Thursday. And we have our next steps on this discussion. Okay, so we have a few minutes for some updates. I will start with membership numbers. We have 1,134 members and 267 Solidarity members. Upcoming membership events, we have our Nourish and Flourish dinner next Wednesday, September 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. Does anyone want to jump in and give some more detail about that?
We will be having a potluck. We invite members to bring their own dishes. We also invite members to stop by the South Pine Street Community Garden and collect produce. We'll be there next week. I think Wednesday was the idea to be there. Or no, the day before, I'm sorry, Tuesday evening to be there harvesting. So if anyone wants to come, we have squash, we have kale, we have peppers, we have ground cherries, tomatoes, beans, carrots. So quite a few things to harvest if you want to use that in your dish. And if you'd like to come to the dinner around 5:30 for members, you can set up, lay out your dish or your offering. And then we'll start everything at 6. And we'll eat and we'll have presentations kind of intermittently and activities and wrap up around 9 o'clock.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. Hope you all can make it. And just for the rest of reporting, I was thinking we can go through our different work areas and just give any high level things that we would like to share with the membership from this last month of work. And I'll kick it off with marketing and communications. We've been working on getting out any event marketing that we need to do, creating flyers and sending out those emails, printing some flyers, getting on social media, all of that stuff. And we've been drafting, or Siobhan has drafted the September newsletter, which should be coming out soon. And we've started working on looking at the website. And we would really like to redesign the website. It might not happen yet or by the end of this year, but definitely something on our priorities list, at least coming into the new year, is to revamp our website and update it to really match our new brand assets and colors and vibe and all of that. So, and in finance, I'll also report on myself and our bookkeeper, Christine, did a big expense audit, looking through our expenses since the beginning of the year, making sure everything is aligned with our chart of accounts, making sure everything is reported accurately in our QuickBooks. And I've been working for the past month or so with the support of Sway and Christine to update our this year's, so 2024 budget to reflect our actuals up until this point and to project the rest of our expenses through the end of this year, so we can try to find any potential remaining funds to put towards some of this programming stuff that we've been talking about, and maybe towards the hiring, since our grant application is going to be in November, and our assuming that we get that grant, our funds will be coming in January. So just trying to see what we'll have through the rest of this year to engage in the rest of our activities, and also just preparing that budget to reflect our actuals. We're striving to have a zero-based budget going into the creation of the 2025 budget, just having it be as reflective of our actual spending as possible, to try to make sure that our expenses and income will even out at the end of the year, essentially. So a lot of work's been going in there. And the work group has been working on a financial sustainability plan, which we plan to have a presentation for next week's dinner. And I think we're also going to try to find a time, maybe next month's open council meeting, to report that and do a recording of that report from each of the work groups. So that also has been going on. And the location and design work group, same thing. We have some stuff to report on that will go out during that dinner next week. So if anyone wants to hear all that information, definitely come to the dinner. And otherwise, we're going to work to find a way to share that out publicly after the dinner. And just my last update in governance and operations is that we're working on, I've been in conversation with Darnell Adams and Bonnie Hudspeth, both part of FCI and some of the other national food cooperative movement initiative, training, development, all of that. They've worked on a lot of other developing co-ops, and I've been in conversation with them about facilitating a strategic planning for us, hopefully next month, or if not, at the very beginning of November, in order for us to really develop our new plan to opening after this past 3 months of being in these work groups, doing this research. Our plan is to be in a place where we can create a new pathway to opening and a detailed strategic plan for next year and our activities next year. So that's in the works. We're going to be receiving a proposal hopefully next week, if not next week, the week after. And yeah, I think that's my important stuff. I'll pass it to Candace in the governance and operations realm if you want to take over from there. If there's anything you want to report on.
Not too much probably worth sharing, just working on documentation, updating and creation, coming up with plan for finance, working on the collaboration manual, updating drive and passwords, those types of admin, back of house types of things. So not exciting stuff, but important stuff.
I'll pass it to Elizabeth if you have anything.
Yes. Appreciate all of your efforts in the back of the house as well. And I feel like for education and outreach, a lot of it has been focusing on these working groups the past few months. Well, we were wrapping up the garden programming. We had quite a few workshops in the garden and they went really well. And following up with people who are responding after the fact and wanting to get involved in the co-op from out of that experience. Also attending some workshops here and there, some trainings. There was a probiotic pickling class or workshop that I attended at White Feather Farm, and that workshop leader would like to also do a similar workshop next year in the garden. So some programming, sort of footwork in place, and then you know, potentially a follow-up a workshop on mushrooms that is still to happen hopefully this fall. And then after that programming, or throughout that programming, the working groups have been focusing on creating narratives, kind of following that Eat Well matrix narrative narrative matrix that we learned about at the workshop at GWI a few months ago. So kind of following that model, that was helpful just to try to get to some specifics in our vision. So we were working on that. We were working on identity mapping and identity matrix, or sorry, intersectional identity mapping, just to try to start to understand our member profiles and what our members might need from the co-op, from the store location. So we've been doing work in that. We've also been doing work in creating a glossary of terms so that we're developing the culture there and some common understanding around what the co-op is and what our goals are. And then creating a list of methodologies that we can use in outreach and engagement, and trying to break that out into plans for each one. And then also creating a survey using former survey, and also you know, trying to get up to date with potential questions that we might ask the community now from the place that we're in now as the landscape changes. So all of those things in the community engagement working groups, and then moving into the pop-up space, in partnership with the CCE. So just working with Drew and Meredith there, and starting to form a plan for that mini market. The collective buying mini market, as it's currently called. So those are the main things that we're doing right now. And in collaboration with the vendor relations and what was the buying club component of the working group, but now the collective buying mini market component of the working group.
Awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. If you have anything.
Just train the mind, train the mind.
Yeah.
It has been, yeah. And
Matt.
so it has been a journey for sure that I think is yielding results.
Mhm.
So just hoping to continue the forward journey so that we can continue to discover this true meaning of community ownership and solidarity economy that's around us, because it's emerging, but it's visible, and there's a lot of help for us. The development of this bulk buying initiative has yielded the results that I thought it would. Because it's supposed to be a small representation of what the bigger iteration would look like. So right now we were 5 or 6. At some point it'll be 30 people doing what 5 or 6 did, and then it'll be more. Because if you ever go to the Parksville Food Co-op general meeting, it's pretty engaged. People are like really about it. So I'm hoping to see this level of engagement grow, because that's going to be what's going to help the business actually succeed, which I think is slowly becoming more and more part of what we do. In the initial part, I felt like it was more about this community driven initiative. And now we're also merging with the business driven, economic driven initiative. But the education work continues. So I'm looking forward to all the people that I invited today and for the past week to come, because I invited both individuals and vendors to come and partners to come, because we won't also be able to grow this without partners and vendors working with us. So I feel that the vendor relations, the purpose, the reason that of the vendor relations department is also becoming more clear to the council and to the rest of hopefully the members. So yeah, I don't know if I went off topic there, but I felt good. I'm gonna mute myself. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for the different buckets that you're holding. And yeah, I agree. Everything is getting clearer. And I'm really excited to present all this to the membership in its final clarity very soon. So super exciting. And we don't have any members here anymore for open forum, but I'll just open it up in case there's any. I mean, we have 4 minutes basically. If there's any remaining questions or comments from the council. Right. So we'll still go into executive session for a second. Let's make sure there's nothing we need to discuss. But in terms of our public open council meeting, we have reached our conclusion. Thank you for watching. And we will see you all soon, hopefully next week at our Nourishing Flourish dinner. and hopefully we'll see you at our next open council meeting next month. So we'll now go into our executive session. I'll stop the recording. Bye to our members.